I'm Nick Riccardi. I'm a national political reporter for the Associated Press based in Denver, Colorado. The Colorado Supreme Court issued a stunning and historic ruling saying that Donald Trump was not qualified to be president again after the January 6th attack. They said he was disqualified based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. This is a provision that was placed in the Constitution after the Civil War to keep former Confederates from rejoining government. And it says that if anybody swore an oath to uphold the Constitution and then engaged in insurrection against it, they can't hold office. It really hasn't been used since the Civil War, except for now. This is a case that's going to go straight to the Supreme Court and has obviously the potential to completely upend the nation's politics. No president's ever been disqualified under the 14th Amendment. The Supreme Court's never ruled on the 14th Amendment. We really don't know what's going to happen next. But the outcome's going to be essentially one of two things. Either Trump stays on the ballot and his likely race against Biden goes forward, or Trump is struck from the ballot nationally and the Supreme Court upholds some version of the Colorado ruling. And that would obviously be an absolutely seismic earthquake, because it means that the election that everybody's been bracing for essentially the last 3 years wouldn't happen. Legal experts think the odds of that are low, because courts usually don't like to make such incredibly impactful rulings on elections before the voters have their say. But it's a question that's kind of begged by the Constitution's very language. And so you've seen a lot of outrage from the right about this ruling. And Trump has long been campaigning against these cases. He says they're election interference. He blames them on Joe Biden, who has nothing to do with the filing of the cases and would probably rather have Trump on the ballot than another Republican. But his complaints have been joined since the Colorado Supreme Court ruling by his primary rivals, who once again, as was the case after charges were filed against Trump earlier this year, are being forced to defend the very man they're trying to beat in the primary. That makes things a little awkward for them and probably increases Trump's position in a primary that he's already dominating.
Yes. We are back here on Issues and Answers Friday. My Country with Scott Cannon. I'm sorry, My Christmas with Scott Cannon. Here it is 7:41 in the PM, 18 minutes to the top of the hour. Let me get this phone call here. Hello, caller.
How you doing, Scott?
What's up?
All right. Listen, I'm going to want to address some of the things that you said. But first, I want to say this to you, man. You know, I think you're a pretty smart and swift young man. You're a pretty wise young man. I'm going to give you that.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
That's it. But listen. Now, listen to me good now.
I know.
All right. Now, I'm talking to you as an experienced man. You're a young man. Let me tell you something, son. Do you remember there used to be a guy that used to come on that station called Doc?
You talking about Dark Man?
No, Doc. I'm not talking about
Doc. Yeah. I remember Doc, yeah.
Okay, now don't you remember when this pandemic came? Where is Doc?
I have no idea.
Listen, listen, Doc is not here no more. You know, physically he's not here, okay? Okay, now listen to this. Listen to this now. I'm going to bring it home to you, son. Now, you know Dr. Roland Walker, right? He's a neighbor of yours out there, right?
What about him?
Okay, you know, his father, I don't know if it was linked to that, but his father, he had COVID.
Oh, yeah.
His mother had COVID. Now, his father passed away. I don't know if it was from that. I'm just saying he was on a respirator. He was quite ill. Now, let me tell you this, son. I had two persons in my family personally impacted by this. They're not here, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Now, listen.
Me too.
Listen now. Well, hold on. Don't you be a part of the stupidity that they floating out here about this vaccine. That vaccine was tested 20 years prior to COVID. 20 years it was in testing.
How is that possible? COVID didn't exist in 2019.
No.
Allegedly.
No. It was being tested for other things. They got things right now.
Well, we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about Donald Trump. You can call back later when we're talking about the COVID stuff. That's not what we're talking about right now.
I'm talking about that because you were talking about it earlier, and I gave you
No, I said it was coming up. It's coming, and it is next hour, but we're not talking about that right now.
Well,
I just did the intro for Trump.
Since you're talking about Donald Trump.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you were talking about Donald Trump, I thought that when you were talking earlier, you were talking about COVID. So I called in. I gave you time to get it out there.
Well, like I said, that's coming up later on in the show. We're going to talk about. Well, we're going to definitely talk about the new study that came out later on in the show.
Well, see, now listen. Now, when you're trying to put Orange Jesus on the stake, now listen. Now, I'm going to tell you like this. The man got a huge following, okay? Now, I'm going to just chime in on that, then I'll call back. The man got a huge following, okay?
Yes, he does.
You want to switch off like that, okay? Now, you said that Donald Trump, you started to talk about him, and now he came to Gary, and he bumped everybody head here. Now, he started off here. This the way that he got what he got his kahunas when he came in. He bumped everybody head with that passion, okay? Then, when you talk about Mr. Fetterman, now all of this comes together. Now, he tells you about U.S. Steel. I am a steel worker. My family, we're deep in steel, okay?
Yes.
Now, when you talk about steel, and then you say, well, they're going to take a certain percentage of that steel mill, right? And they're going to turn it back over to Gary, maybe, right? Well, you know those rocks out there for 120-some years been soaked with contaminants. Who wants to swim in a poison pit? You don't even want to eat them fish out of that lake. Okay? Lake Michigan is beautiful to look at, but I wouldn't eat nothing out of there if you gave me U.S. Steel.
Me neither.
U.S. Steel is being sold, they say, for what? $60 billion, $66 billion, right?
Right.
$66 billion. Why won't some of them billionaires come out and they save U.S. Steel? Okay? Now, the president will probably save it. It'll probably trade on the stock market, probably for public stock, maybe, where everybody could probably buy into a piece of it. U.S. Steel has been losing money for the past 30 years because it had to revamp. China was beating out about 54% of the steel market around the world, okay? So U.S. Steel is losing money. Now, what happened, U.S. Steel went downstate. Downstate is what bumped our head. U.S. Steel didn't. It had to have the blessings of downstate. So quit putting U.S. Steel and saying U.S. Steel did it. They did it downstate. I'll call you back, all right?
All right now, brother. It's all good. Yes, but like I was saying in the intro, a divided Colorado. Oh, this is from Associated Press. Big shout out to them because I love the Associated Press because they are the least biased news source you're going to get here in America. I mean, they're not totally unbiased, but they're not owned by the billionaires like the ABC, NBC, CBS. They are sort of the aggregate, the press aggregator, the news aggregator, I'm sorry, of record. So they're less likely to give you nonsense, but so shout out to them. A divided Colorado Supreme Court declared that former President Donald Trump is ineligible for the White House under the U.S. Constitution's insurrection clause and removed him from the state's presidential primary ballot, setting up a likely showdown with the nation's highest court, of which Trump put 3 people on there to decide whether the front runner for the GOP can remain in the race. The decision from a court whose justices were all appointed by Democratic governors marks the first time in history that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment has been used to disqualify a presidential candidate. A majority of the court hold that Trump is disqualified from holding office under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. The court wrote in its 4-3 decision, Colorado's highest court overturned a ruling from a district court judge who found that Trump incited an insurrection for his role in the January 2021 attack on the Capitol, but said that he could not be barred from the ballot because it was unclear that the provision intended to cover the presidency. Now, come on now. Come on now. Come on. The clause says basically that like people who have sworn an oath to uphold the law cannot engage in these sort of shenanigans. And so they're saying it's other people, senators and congressmen. That's the argument that Trump's people are making. Trump's legal spokeswoman, Alina Habba, what a hell of a name that is, Alina Habba, said in a statement Tuesday night, this ruling issued by the Colorado Supreme Court attacks the very heart of this nation's democracy. It will not stand, and we trust that the Supreme Court will reverse this unconstitutional order. Look, Trump lost Colorado by 13 points in 2020, and he probably wasn't going to win it in 2024 either. But the reason that this is important, because the thinking was if they got him taken off the ballot in Colorado, they might get him taken off of the ballot in other parts of the country, in other states. So dozens of lawsuits have been filed nationally to disqualify Trump under Section 3, which was designed to keep former Confederates from returning to government after the Civil War. It bars from office anyone who swore an oath to support the Constitution and then engaged in insurrection or rebellion against it, and has been used only a handful of times since the decade after the Civil War. Now, Trump's attorneys are saying that because the language in Section 3 refers to officers of the United States who take an oath to support the Constitution, it must not apply to the president, who is not included as an officer of the United States elsewhere in the document, and whose oath is to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. So they're talking real semantics here. That's the Trump argument. Now, obviously, I think that when this goes to the Supreme Court, the big court, where Trump put 3 people on the Supreme Court, Neil Kavanaugh, what's the woman's name? She's from Indiana. Amy Coney Barrett. And let me think, who's the third person Trump put on the Supreme Court? I forgot the other guy. But Trump put 3 people on the Supreme Court. And now the Republicans have an advantage. Obviously, they're not going to go against Trump. Now, they have, in some instances, gone against the Republicans, which sort of shocked people recently. I forgot, there was a case where Amy Coney Barrett voted against what the sort of Republicans were pushing. I forget. I have to find which case that was, but it's very unlikely that they are going to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. Personally, I don't think he should be able to run again. I've said this from every show that we've ever done this. Me and the Rev did, going back to January 6th, 2021. I fully understand why Donald Trump did what he did. I fully understand that he was angry about 4 years of Russiagate nonsense that MSNBC and liberals, and now we know that the Clinton campaign lied, and they've actually been punished by the election committee, where they found out that Hillary Clinton actually did fund the now very discredited Steele dossier that talked about the PP tape where Donald Trump allegedly got peed on and had all this evidence that Russia was doing this, and this. We now know that the Clinton campaign at first said that they didn't do it. They did fund it. They know they funded it, and they lied, and it's actually been funded. I don't think Hillary Clinton should be allowed to run for anything again. And I don't think any of the people who pushed the Russiagate nonsense for 4 years should be able to run either. Donald Trump does what he does to try to get back at the Democrats for treating his presidency as illegitimate. So he says, if you're going to treat my presidency as illegitimate, I'm going to treat your presidency as illegitimate. Two wrongs don't make a right. Both the Russiagators and the Trumpers have done irreparable damage to this country. So much that, I mean, we've done stories on this show. A large swath of the American public truly believes that we are going to have a civil war. An actual civil war. Like it's 1861 all over again. An actual civil war. People believe it because of the damage that the last two losers in the presidential race have done. Hillary Clinton spent over $1 billion, lost to a game show host, gets mad. All of her friends in the deep state are afraid that they can't control Trump, so they come up with the Russiagate nonsense that I told you was nonsense from day one because Barack Obama was in office while it happened. You think Barack Obama wouldn't have done nothing to Russia if they had actually overturned the election? You think Obama was just going to sit there and let them cheat his party? That's just nonsense. Okay, we know now that they had Trump under constant surveillance, that they magnified any interactions between Trump and anybody with a Russian last name to try to get him. And ultimately, Robert Mueller said, there ain't enough here for me to do anything that's going to really be an issue. Like, I don't see it enough here. I'm sorry. And that's after we looked through every single cavity, tapped Donald Trump's phones when he was a candidate, everything that they were not supposed to do, they did. Okay? And so Trump says, this is get back. I understand that. Still, you invite thousands of people to try to stop a Democratic election from being certified because you're mad you lost. And you know you lost because your daughter says you know you lost. And Ivanka's the only one we know you like. Your Attorney General, Bill Barr, knows you lost. They all know you lost. People around you, people who are part of Trump world, who worked in the White House, say that you said, admitted privately, that you can't believe you lost to an idiot like Joe Biden. Well, neither can I. But that's because you are incompetent. You're a buffoon. Joe Biden's a buffoon as well, but, you know, that might cost him this time. If Trump was a smart person, what Trump would have done was say, fine, you guys got me. I will be back in 2024. I will let things crumble under Joe Biden, which they have. We're on the precipice of World War III. I mean, I hope you guys are straying away from the corporate media narratives about Ukraine. Ukraine is losing. They are losing badly. The average age of the person fighting on the front lines of Ukraine is 43 years old now. 43. They are enlisting women now. And the elderly. They are dragging elderly people to fight on the front lines in Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian men have fled the country. We have spent, 100 billion, over 100 billion, 200 billion in Ukraine, or at least in a money laundering operation that we're calling the Ukraine war. And we're helping the Israelis, the colonizers, perpetuate a genocide that is unpopular with the entire world. That is so unpopular that even young people, who the Democrats could always depend on, supporting them over the Republican, Donald Trump is more popular with them, with a lot of young people. If Trump was smart, he would have just bided his time and let things collapse and let the chips fall where they may. But no, he did not do that. He concocted a story, and a terrible one at that, about how there was secret drop-off boxes and how, there was all this election interference. He's so dumb he gets caught on the phone talking to election officials and governors of states, trying to get them to perpetuate fraud. So no, I don't believe there's any way Donald Trump should be able to run for office. And I know there's the argument that you're just making him more popular. So what? So what? Who cares? There have been murderers who've become popular. Serial killers. We had mob vigilante justice throughout the 19th century in this country where, a black man would be falsely accused of a crime, usually by a white woman. And it was very popular to go and lynch him and every black person in the town. Just because something is popular doesn't make it right, doesn't make it good. Donald Trump is a criminal, a lifelong criminal, an arrogant criminal who gets caught talking about his crimes openly. So no, I don't care if it makes Trump more popular. Even if it makes him more likely to win the election if it's fair. Fine. But there has to be a standard that you hold the elites to. You can't just say, if you're running for president, you can just do whatever the hell you want and get away with it. He joked about being able to kill somebody on Broadway in New York and his audience would still love him. Should he go and do it? And then we can't charge him because that might make him more popular. Come on. That's a horrible argument. That's a dumb argument. He is guilty. We have him on tape saying he's guilty. We have his daughter admitting that he didn't win the election. We have everyone who was around him at the time knows that he was lying. He called thousands of people, gullible, often mentally disturbed people, to the Capitol of the United States to throw a hissy fit because he was mad he lost. And for that, he shouldn't be able to be on any ballot for anything else. My stance has been the same for the last 8 years. My stance is the same with the Clinton people and the idiots on MSNBC who pushed their nonsense about Russiagate. And it's the same for these Newsmax weirdos and these, One America News Network idiots, and even a lot of the Fox News idiots who pushed the big lie about Trump. If you completely diminish the integrity of our elections to the point where nobody believes any of the results anymore, then you are the Central African Republic, folks. That is what you are. You are Haiti. You are a third world country where politicians regularly get their cars blown up and get assassinated. And don't think that we're not that far from this. We are very close to living in a world where politicians get their cars blown up and get assassinated regularly. And that is due in part to the Russiagators and now the Trump world people. None of these people should be allowed to show their face in public ever again. Get Donald Trump off the ballot. And another piece of Christmas, another early Christmas gift for us. Rudy Giuliani just filed for bankruptcy after he lost his $148 million lawsuit. So, so I'm happy about this as well. We can celebrate this. Yes. None of these people should be allowed to run for office or show their faces again, especially Rudy Giuliani, whose racist Gestapo tactics in New York City made black people and poor people's lives a living hell throughout the 90s, while these same corporate media that hates him now because they hate Trump and he's associated with Trump kissed his behind all over the place during the 90s and after 9/11. Good riddance to him as well. All right, folks. When we got to go to a break, but when I come back, happy happies! We'll be right back after these.